I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with a Ajiri tea. A Ajiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Man, I have to tell you about the easiest way to get started into podcasting. Go to anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app to get yourself rolling, and it could not be any easier than that. I literally heard about this app on a Thursday and then downloaded it, recorded a podcast on a Friday, and then distributed it. And now it is all over. It is that simple, and it is all free. So again, go to anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app to get yourself started. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. Hello again, and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. Today, I am hanging out with Savio Clemente, and it is just a beautiful conversation. We have recovery stories, discovery stories, and there's so much power in all the knowledge he has and the life that he has lived. So I hope you enjoy. And if you do, follow on Spotify and Instagram at The Beautifully Human Podcast. If you want, rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, that would be awesome. And most of all, enjoy this conversation. The first one I like to start out with is just a broad overarching, just tell me a story about your life.
A story about my life. So I can tell you the most tragic one, or at least the one that I feel like I've overcome the most, which is my cancer story. I was diagnosed in 2014 with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They found it in my stomach. It's a blood cancer. And I was bedridden for 2 weeks in the hospital. The first week, they had to put a nephrostomy tube in order to distend. So I had a distended stomach in order to get rid of about, I think it was 7 liters of fluid, which was pretty substantial. I was told 3 days before I left that I needed to start chemo. Prior to that, I was high intensity, organic, hormone-free eater, taking vitamins, seeing my naturopath. So I thought about it long and hard, and I came to the conclusion that I felt for me, I needed to do both. And so I decided to do both chemo and an integrative approach, which, that includes different alternative medicines. And then since then, I wanted to wait for my 5-year mark before I transitioned. So my background's IT. And now I'm a board certified wellness coach. I passed my medical boards last year and I didn't let COVID stop me.
Fantastic. Man, it is, when I read that, I was just like, what a beautiful story, man. Like, first, just how horrifying that had to be to find out about that. Like, what were you thinking when you got your diagnosis?
I knew something was wrong, obviously, because my stomach was like a pregnant woman. And I was like, and even my naturopath was like, something is definitely wrong here. You need to go get scans. It's interesting because so I had like the best care. I counted, it was about 19 different doctors in the hospital that visited me. It was very odd, but I was very thankful. And they kept asking me the same story, like, tell me how this happened, or, tell me, how you first. And I think for me, I think I was just a little stunned, but I didn't like, I'm the type of person, I don't fall into despair, or at least I don't show it to other people.
Sure.
And so I kind of just accepted it. And I had Wi-Fi, and I was like, as long as I have my smartphone and I am armed with information, I'll be good. So they did a spinal tap, like they had to do like a test on me. And they actually said among the people they do it for, because it's really, really painful, I didn't even scream.
Wow.
So yeah. So I don't know what to say about it. Maybe I was completely numb to the process. I'm not sure.
Sure. Yeah, I've heard nothing but horror stories about Spinal Tap. So the fact that you took it with ease is pretty impressive. Yeah, I was also thinking about, I hadn't thought about it in a little bit, but it's incredible that you were able to now be this far past it. 'Cause I had a friend, and he was 29 when he was diagnosed, and he had a fast acting lymphoma, and he was gone in 3 months. And
Wow.
so I just know, I didn't even know at the time. I was touring. I work in the music industry, so I was out. I was gone. I didn't even know he went to the hospital. That's how quick it was. And I saw a post online, and I was just like, "Oh shit, he's gone. Wow. Okay, what happened? I had no idea I was sick." So that was my personal connection with your story. Was it's unbelievable how there's two extremes to it, where you can go so quickly, or you come out on the other side, which I'm very thankful that you're on the other side of that.
Yeah. I mean, I hit my 6-year remission mark. Some of the doctors were saying to me, not that you want cancer, but if you want to get a cancer, this is probably the better treated ones in terms of overcoming. They kept touting this drug called Rituxan, which is a biologic. And they said it really does wonders according to the research. Of course, I don't know. I didn't know what any of this stuff was before it happened to me. Um, I just vowed to myself, Nick, that I was going to tackle it as best I could, and the rest is not up to me. So I felt like as long as I did what Savio needed to do, I'm good.
Yeah, I can fully understand that, because at that point, yeah, I mean, I know I had um a little over 2.5 years ago, I was in the hospital for beginning stages of liver failure because of my drinking habit. So I'm now almost closer to 3 years sober than I was, at this point. So yeah, that was kind of my thing. I was like, I don't want to die. So whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do everything in my power. And then I'll let you do everything else. So I can fully understand the, like, you take what you can do, and then I'll do everything I can. And I was looking at your website, and I really love, it's kind of, it's, you say it differently than I say it, but I love your get busy living.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's I one of my favorite movies in the world is Shawshank Redemption, and
Yeah.
there's a quote that says "Get busy living or get busy dying," and that literally kept running in through my head when I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, fine. They want me to do chemo. I did my research. I feel comfortable about it, but then I'm like, I need to do things on my own as well. Otherwise, I won't feel like I did my best with the situation.
Right. Funny you mentioned Shawshank. Where I grew up in Ohio, the prison that it was filmed at is about 15 minutes from where I grew up.
Oh wow, yeah, that movie is a really fantastic. Like, it's so many ways beyond just the writing, the direction, the acting, the crux of the story changes. I just think it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I remember seeing it for the first time, and I was just like, "Oh my god, this is incredible! This is so cool!" Yeah, but yeah, it's they actually do like overnight stays in that in the penitentiary, because it's supposedly haunted and everything. So
Oh, well.
you can do like, they do haunted houses and stuff. They actually do a music festival there. It's called it used to be called Ink in the Clink, and now it's called Incarceration, because it's a tattoo and music festival. So
Oh wow.
yeah. So if you're
Wow.
ever looking to have some
I am
Shawshank,
inked. I have two inks. I was thinking of getting another one since I hit my 5-year remission mark. So yeah.
yeah,
So what did I ended up doing after hitting my 5-year mark? So this is obviously before COVID. Was I went to Phuket, Thailand. And I did a fitness retreat for 2 weeks.
that's fantastic.
It was 2 workouts a day, And one of the challenges, I can't believe I even did it, 2.9 miles up a huge mountain to the Great Buddha in the hot sun with your partner, switching with 40-pound kettlebells on each hand. And the guy was like, no one's quitting. It was like 18, 19 of us. No one's quitting. He's like, I don't care if it takes you 5 hours. And, we did it in about 2.5, but literally like things were shaking and I got a cramp, but I made it. I made it up there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a
So
cool experience.
my friends were like, only you would celebrate your 5-year mission mark doing like a crazy fitness challenge. I'm like, well, I gotta live, as they say.
Yeah. And I mean, there's funny similarities in a lot of these stories you're telling, because right after, I wasn't even a year sober, but my brother had called me up and he said, he was just telling me for his 35th birthday, he was going to run a half marathon. And I'm not a runner by any means. I don't like running. It's not something I enjoy. I've never run since high school, really. And I said, all right, I'll do it with you. It's your 35th birthday. Let's do it. So I flew to Boston and we drove to a little coastal town and I ran a half marathon for his 35th. So it was kind of one of those torturous moments in my life too, of like, you know what? You're going to do it. I'm going to do it. And even right before I did it, his wife was like, Nick, she was putting on my bid number and everything. And she was just like, Nick, you know, you don't have to do this. I said, I know, but I'll see you at the finish line. And again, I don't care if it takes me the full day. You pick me up tomorrow. I don't care. I'm going to do this. And it was one of those, I mean, I was cramping up. I'm sure feeling some of the same similarities that you were feeling.
I mean, not even that. My hands were all tore up because of the hot sun, the kettlebells, and they're all. It was, and then you had to do the partner switch, and it was grueling. But I really felt accomplished. And anyway, out of the 2 weeks, I lost about 4% body fat, which is a plus. So
yeah, that's incredible. So yeah, I love talking about traveling. I'm glad you brought it up, and I always like to ask throughout the podcast if. Obviously now with COVID, we'll take the COVID restrictions out and all of that. In a normal world, if I came to you and I had a plane ticket to anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Egypt.
Ooh.
Yeah. I've always been fascinated with ancient Egypt, the lore, the way that they communed with the elements, the mysteries and the pyramid and the Sphinx. I don't know if this is the right time to go, but if someone did say go, I would go there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would. I'm pretty fascinated by that as well. I think, I mean, there's not really any place I wouldn't want to go, but I think Egypt is just one of those, like you said, all those reasons. It's just so fascinating, just the culture and how, just to look at the pyramids and be like, how?
Yeah, 100%. And then like I'm someone who watches like, a lot of television, or at least somewhat of diverse television, and you hear about these stories like mathematically it was impossible based upon their rudimentary tools for them to do that. So then you think to yourself, well, then how was it done? It's just really crazy. Yeah.
Well, and just the sheer size of those rocks as well. Of like, how do you get those up there? I mean, now I can see how you do it, but it's just mind blowing to me. I don't understand how it's done.
I mean, like, would you get like 150,000 slaves in order? Like, how does that work?
But even then, I mean, I've seen people picking up road cases on tours, and there's 6 people around just a very small road case, and it's hard to fit 6 people around something that size, let alone the manpower it would take to get it up that way. So in your other travels, what's your favorite place you've been to?
So I've been fortunate enough to travel to a lot of great places. I would say there's something about Capri. So I went to Italy, and I'm not kidding. Like, I stepped out of the yacht boat and I knew my way around. It was so odd. It's probably the first time that's ever happened to me in that sense. There was something freeing and expansive about it. I would say that's one. And then I went to Cape Town, South Africa. That was fantastic.
That's
So my
amazing.
sister lives in like the Napa Valley region,
Okay.
and I didn't know South Africa, their vineyards, in my opinion, almost rival Napa Valleys.
Wow.
Yeah. And, they have this big mountain called Table Bay Mountain. They have these like beach towns, to me that are, similar to, Santa Monica. It was just a glorious, the culture, the food. It was just a glorious trip.
Yeah, I would love to go to South Africa. A friend of mine who he is from Zimbabwe. He's living in I think in Cape Town right now, and he was graduating from Butler School, which I didn't even know was a thing until he went, and we actually watched his graduation at 4 a.m. this morning in South Africa. So we kind of I was thinking, man, I wish it was that easy to get to South Africa, just like to click a button and be like, we're there.
Totally, totally. And then, so my background's Indian. I
Yeah.
came to the States when I was 3 years old. I was born in Mumbai, but my parents are from Goa. Most people kind of don't know where that is. It's on the southwest, and it was ruled by the Portuguese for many years.
Okay.
So it has a very Indian/Portuguese sensibility. But I haven't been there in like over 20 years. I was supposed to go this past December because my parents have a home there, and obviously I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you about that. And I read that on your website as well that you came here when you were young. So when you got here, how was it growing up here?
I don't remember anything from before 3 years old. I don't know if that was like actual something I'm blocking for whatever reason,
Right.
or I just really don't remember. But in any event, yeah, I grew up in a small little sleepy town. I don't know if you ever heard of this, ever heard of the show called The Facts of Life
Mhm.
back in the day in the 80s, 90s. It was supposed to set place in a town called Peekskill. So
Oh, okay.
I grew up in the suburbs of Westchester County, which is in New York. It's about 45 miles north of New York City.
Okay.
Um, and the upbringing was great. It was diverse in an interesting way. So it was like 49% African American, 49% Caucasian, and then 2% other. And me and my family and community was the other.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was, middle class, upbringing. And then I went away to college in the city, and everything opened up.
Yeah. And so you said you hadn't been to India in quite a while. Do you still have family there then?
So I have so everyone on my mom's side is still there, but and then I have extended relatives who I have not seen in over 20
Yeah.
years. So yeah, I mean, my trip to India this past December, if I got to go, was visiting other parts of India. I've only visited Goa and Mumbai. I have not seen the vast richness that
Yeah.
India has to offer. And that trip, because I was going to do it with a tour company, was going to end in Nepal. So I've
Oh,
never been to.
cool.
Yeah. So
Man.
as long as everyone I know is safe from COVID, I'm totally fine with missing that adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope you do get to go on that adventure though. I'm
Thank you.
sure I'm
Yeah,
sure you'll reschedule that.
I'm sure I will.
Yeah. So I did see one thing I wanted to ask you about. I was reading through your website to get some questions for you. I saw that you said you grew up with a stutter.
I did.
How was that? Did you get picked on, or was it
Mm.
what was your experience like?
Yeah. So I had a best friend at the time. That's when people attributed the words like best friend. I don't do
Right.
that anymore as an adult. And he had a massive stuttering problem and issue. And for me, I just remember being afflicted with it like from third grade all the way to like eighth grade until I graduated elementary school. And I wasn't really picked on. So I grew up in a small Catholic elementary school. Everyone knew each other from grade 1 to grade 8. And the class size was like 21 or
Oh
20.
wow, yeah.
So there wasn't really, and it was, ruled by nuns. So they were very strict in how they went about things. No, I think a large part had to do with the fact that I had a friend who was also like, his case was a little more severe. And so no one could pick on you because you wasn't really the outcast, because there was
Sure.
more than just one person.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because my parents made me see doctors, and one of them even suggested like maybe he's picking up things from his friend,
Oh, wow.
which was really strange,
Hmm.
right? And as a child, like, how am I supposed to counteract that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Um, so I I can't say I had any speech therapy. I can't say I read any books about it. I think for me, I just got more comfortable in my skin
Okay.
and was able to breathe into whatever I want to say. I'm not actually sure.
Well, I mean, I love that story. And I never even thought of that you could possibly pick that up from a friend of yours at such a young age. Because I'm thinking anytime I get around people with certain accents, I kind of adapt. It rubs off a little bit. So I hadn't even put that into my mind of you could pick up an impediment from that as well.
Yeah, and now that you're speaking about that, I do the same thing too. And sometimes, not that anyone's ever told me, but I have heard a friend once say to me, like, "Are you trying to make fun of them?" I'm like, "No, I'm not doing it consciously. I swear to you.
Yeah,
It's just like what I'm doing." And I think maybe it might be like a learning mechanism for me or a survival mechanism for me. I'm not actually sure. I never really explored that.
yeah.
Um, but it could be.
It also could be a something in you that I'm thinking of it now too because I've never thought about it, but I'm thinking maybe it was you're trying to help someone feel more comfortable with that. And so if you pick up little parts of them, they'll feel more comfortable around you. Maybe it was something in you that you just love people and that's your nature is to help people.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember, I think it was fourth or fifth grade, we had this sessions where everyone would read a chapter with the rest of the class. And I just remember that's when my stuttering was really apparent and obvious, because I would like pause to start. And then when the next sentence came, I would stutter the sentence. So I don't know, maybe it was like social anxiety as well. I'm not actually sure.
Hmm. Yeah, because I remember too. I was watching a movie, and it was I think it was called The King's Voice, and I remember where he has a teacher, and it's like, why should they listen to you? And he's like, because I have a voice, and I always remember that. I've thought of that when I'm speaking to people with just standing up for themselves or just like being present for themselves. But it also was he was dealing with a massive speech impediment, um, and I think I didn't know anybody that had one when I was young, but I know even just recently with elections, I was seeing people making fun of officials with a speech impediment, and I was like, how are you going to pick on somebody for something like that? It just never. I don't. It doesn't make any sense to me that you're going to pick up on that and go, you're weak because of that, or you just whatever comes into your mind. I've never understood that. So I'm always fascinated to hear how people unlearn that or work through that to be a public speaker. Like the poet, that spoke at the inauguration, she had a speech impediment, and I was like, you never would have known. She spoke so poetically. That was incredible.
I completely 100% agree. I, it's interesting because I think a large part, at least for me now in thinking back, was everything was spinning in my head, and I just couldn't allow that to actually sort of manifest in what I was saying or what I was wanting or attempting to say. And then I was just kind of very sort of introspective and sullen
Mm,
when I was younger. So maybe it's something to do with it as well. Like, I didn't really want to cause waves or
sure.
cause any issues or problems. So,
Yeah. So what was it like in Catholic school for you?
oh, hmm. It wasn't really that. So I was an altar boy. So
Okay.
yeah, I did it for like, I think 5 years. They wanted me at weddings and funerals, and I ran, I did the best I could. Um, it, it was nice being, I felt I was coddled for sure.
Yeah.
Um, um, Definitely safe for sure. My origin stories, I never really ever got picked on or hurt or abused or hit or anything like that. Um, it was nice. I don't know if I got a very expansive learning
Sure.
in the sense of diversity, not only in culture but in terms of like thoughts.
Yeah.
But I can't complain because my parents did the best they could, and so I am one of three children, and I'm the
Okay.
youngest of
All
three.
right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I went to a small Christian school, K through 8. My mom up until a year and a half ago. Well, yeah, a year and a half ago, she still taught there, and I feel the same. Where it was very safe, it was very nice, but yeah, it wasn't very expansive. Like, the one that I wish I would have realized, and I didn't realize this until I started traveling, was focus on languages. I just didn't. It wasn't anything that was put out to me of this is why you should pay attention to these. I didn't know. I didn't think about it. I didn't think about leaving small town Ohio. I just was a kid that was just off like playing sports and being a kid. And then I was like, man, if I could tell anything to little Nick, I would just say, dude, be a language nerd and realize that you're going to go see all these places. Thankfully, I've been fortunate to see a ton of places, but man, I just never thought about it. So I feel the same where it was very nice. It was a really good environment. I was never picked on. I had great friends, but there wasn't a very like expansive knowledge given to me.
No, or even at least for me, access to it, or
Right.
at least to some degree, the ability to have access to it really wasn't. It was like, this is the library,
Right.
this is it's okay, great, thanks,
Yeah.
and totally fine. Like I said, I didn't have any traumatic scars, so I think that's a win.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I've heard and I've actively had conversations with a lot of people that have a lot of trauma coming from from those experiences. So I'm very happy you didn't. Do you have any funny or just random weird stories from altar your times as an altar boy?
Um, yeah, I would say the funniest thing is well, I'm not ratting anyone out, but like the priests, like they would be like on, like as soon as the congregation saw them, they would be on. Now I get it; they have to have some level of professionalism, but they were like totally different. They were screaming, yelling, huffing, puffing, complaining. And it's like the switch got turned
Yeah,
on. And it's funny because I would have to do the same, right? You have to have some
sure.
level of decorum. You have to be timely. Everything was like set at a specific point. You had to, do the incense. You had to, have all those elements. I guess that's the only funny story. Friends of mine make fun of me because they're like, come on, you have a salacious. I'm like, I don't have anything. I've never seen anything. I don't know anything. They're all the priests were nice to me. It's all that
Right.
mattered. So yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, I mean, I relate that too. I've seen people in my industry working with music where one lead singer that a band I worked with was literally puking in the trash can every night before he went on stage, and then that dude went on stage and it was like, whoo, this other person came out, and I was
Yeah.
like, damn, dude, you were just puking, and he goes, dude, I have stage fright until I hit stage, and then I am
Yeah.
a whole nother person, and I'd seen them before I worked for him, and it was just like I never would have guessed, And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think it's also in part of my work that I do is running VIP experiences, so
Mm.
pre-parties and all that for bands, and so I feel that where before during the day I am just like I'm introverted. I do love people, but yeah, when people come in and it's their pre-party and they've paid a lot of money or they're meeting that band, like I have to be that like welcome. So I can completely understand just showing up and turning on for your role.
Yeah. I think I read or heard that Beyonce does that. She's
Oh
like
wow.
Sasha Fierce on the stage, but she's like timid and quiet and shy outside of it. It's quite interesting because when she even gets the awards, you could tell that's like the real Beyonce. Not that the other one isn't. It's
Right.
just she just turns it up, like she dials
Yeah.
it up completely. So it's quite
Well, yeah,
interesting.
because I have to think too with anybody in that realm, or I mean, even priests, that you have to have this persona. I mean, you just can't keep up with that all the time.
No.
There's so much to it. There's so much energy to put into that. You just, I've never met anybody that is that level
Yeah. Yeah.
nonstop.
I think for me, though, the only reason why for me it was just a jolt because they're supposed to live this like idyllic spiritual path.
Sure.
And so it's like, well, are they faking it to make it? But they're
Right.
not.
Right. Oh, that's too funny. Um, so one other thing that I saw on your website, and totally fine if you don't want to talk about it, but I was reading about your college experience, and you had said you had a struggle with your sexual identity.
I
Can
did.
you explain that?
Sure. So I grew up in this little town called Peekskill, which is in Westchester County, and then I went to school in the city. I was actually right in Manhattan, so the college was right next to Lincoln Center. So I lived in a 20-story apartment basically. And the first year was tough, Nick. I mean, tough. I people were gossiping. I went to a school where it was like liberal arts, and so there was a lot of theater majors there. I've never really been exposed to gay people, or at least what I knew were gay or what that even meant. And it was hard because I'm someone who just likes to be friends with a lot of people. So I never distanced myself away from gay identified individuals. And so people would say, well, you're hanging out with them. Are you gay? And I'm like, no. And it was a rocky road. I mean, my grades suffered.
Mm.
I am someone back then who didn't really like I cared what people thought of me. So that was like a huge blow. And then we lived in these like apartment style dorms where each dorm room had like 3 rooms and each of the rooms had 2 individuals. So it's like a 6-person suite.
Mm-hmm.
And so you couldn't really escape. It's not like it was like a sprawling campus where you were
Right.
like all it was actually very hard. So of course I kind of always had an idea something was different about me. I didn't really know what that was. And so I came out towards the end of my sophomore year in college.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's kind of similar with growing up in a small town in Ohio. I imagine it would have been incredibly tough in growing up in Catholic school and with all that going around to figure that out, because that's also something that isn't like, hey, if you're having these feelings, it's not like, let's explore those, let's talk about those. Like, is this something that you're feeling? It's not, at least in my experience here, from anybody I knew and the education that I was getting, it definitely wasn't like, hey, explore this, figure it out for yourself. So is that how it was when you were growing up?
Yeah. So I grew up in a Asian Indian household where things like that weren't even talked about,
Yeah.
literally not even discussed. I also came from a culture where it sounds strange, but like we would watch TV and if people were kissing, my parents would turn the channel,
Mm,
like literally. So like any affection was not even shown.
sure.
It sounds really sad, but maybe it is to some degree, but I wasn't really told like, no, like none of my parents ever said, I loved you. They showed it to me in other ways with caring
Yeah.
for me and feeding me and all that. So that had to contend with. Also, I grew up with parents who were just very Catholic. They said novenas. They went to church every week. I was an altar boy. So that was it. Then I wasn't really exposed to any individuals like that. Um,
Right.
all I remember in looking back, and it's been a while, is that I had these attractions to wanting to be friends with certain guys, and I didn't understand what that meant.
Sure.
I just wanted to be their friend. Um, and yeah, it was, I can't say it was torturous because I had a support system. And it was only until this one friend from college said, he took me to a gay bar in the city, and I remember it so vividly. And he said, look all around. He's like, all they want is to be loved. That's it. So
Wow.
he's like, and I'm like, and it's really funny because my college where I went to, so my roommate was like a cross dresser. Then my other person in the other suite was someone who listened to Bette Midler, and I wasn't exposed to any of that. Bette Midler and all those campy. So I was like, and then there was another guy in the other dorm room who was like, he had the stereotypical like lisp and was very effeminate. So I got to see like different variations of what gay meant. And I just remember that moment at that bar, him saying, all they want is love. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like that simple, isn't it? And
Yeah.
here I'm like trying to like, wrestle and conflicted. And it's just simple enough to just say, love yourself. And then you can maybe find someone who can love you.
Man, and I was getting a little emotional when I heard that. That's so beautiful. Like, what a powerful way to just be like, they just want love.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful message to people, even in this day, which is so bonkers to me that it is still an issue that people are fighting against and actively being so terrible. And it's like, we just want love. What do you want? You want to be loved. You want to be seen. You want to be heard. That's what everybody wants. And it doesn't matter who you love,
yeah,
or where you find love from. Like, I mean, I can't even imagine you at that moment. Like, you're learning all these, like you said, you're seeing all these types of people that you hadn't seen necessarily. And then all of a sudden you get to this bar and then you get that message. Like, I'm sure you were like, that had to be so freeing.
It was freeing. It was a paradigm shift, because I'm like, oh, so these people, they're not really, really wanting the alcohol or really, really wanting to dance. They just want to connect. They just want to love. They just want to be accepted.
Yeah.
And it was like a revelation. And then from that, my activism spurred. I was, marching in DC for human rights. And then gay marriage was a huge thing. I was massively active on that. And I was like, I don't know if I'll ever get married, but I want to have the choice to get married and it to be legally binding.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, I loved it now in hindsight, because it was so base, so simple, and so like the gravity of it, if you really think about it, was just so magnetic.
Yeah. And now I'm thinking through our conversation that we've had so far, what I know about you and your life. And I'm like, yeah, you grow up in this very safe place that you get this education, and then you go to the city and then you meet these people, and then like this moment happens. And just how I've talked to so many people that again had so much trauma around that, and it was just such a horrible road to get to where they are, and it's still that. And I'm like, that is what a cool way to finally find that out about yourself, be okay with that with yourself, and then have somebody to be like, this is what it is. And like you said, it's not about the booze, it's not about the drinking or the dancing. We want to connect, we want to feel seen and be with people that are like us. Like, how beautiful.
Yeah.
So
and
amazing.
I'm still friends with him to this day. We had our ins and outs, but
Sure.
I have told him that story. I said it was actually very pivotal. So I have to thank you for that. And
oh man, when you told him that, did he realize?
Okay, so a little backstory. I think he had a crush on me, and he would express it in different ways. I honestly wasn't ready for even knowing what that was. In general, like the concept of loving someone in general, I didn't know what that was. And then loving a man, I didn't know what that was either. But I think it touched him because he's someone who likes to say things, and he just didn't say anything after I said that to him. Like, he had to pause to filter.
Yeah, I imagine that was, because I think that's a fascinating part to stories, is who played a big part in your story that may have not even known. I mean, there's so many times when I'm speaking to people with this podcast where they have a story that was a massive defining moment in their life, and then they've had the chance to tell the other person about it, and that person is just like, I was just saying something. It was just very matter of fact, like, yeah, they just want love. And it was just a very plain, throw it out there. But to you, it hit you in a massive way. And I think that's so cool when you get to be able to tell that back to that person. Because also I know a lot of people that have had those moments, and it was like, oh, it's a perfect stranger that just was a ship in the night. And that's cool too. But then to get to tell that person that was a big part of that for you,
Yeah.
how that meant. So I think that's really beautiful.
And I'm kind of glad he did pause, because can you imagine him running like, I just wanted to get you like drunk and so I can hit on you. Can you imagine if
Yeah, you're
that?
like, yeah.
No, I remember it perfectly, idyllically in my mind, the way.
Oh, that's amazing. So after this moment, when did you talk to your family about it?
Oh yeah. So I remember I brought a cousin. I told my cousin. She's the only family member I told. I didn't tell my. So I have two older sisters. I
Yeah.
didn't tell them because I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell them. I didn't really feel like they could understand. I felt she could understand because she's just one of those, when you just connect with someone and you
Yeah.
just know. And she was super supportive. And she accompanied me to the house, to my parents' house, and I told them, and they were pretty shocked. Although I think my mom knew something was not like typical about me in that sense. I gave them books. They didn't read it because I remember looking and seeing like the brown wrapping from the books. Like years later, they didn't even read it. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then I left. I left for the city because I was living there. And I think it's one of those things with my parents that, so I'm not in a relationship. I'm not married. I don't have a partner. I don't think it becomes real until that happens.
Sure.
Because to them, well, what does my son who's gay means? All they're thinking is he doesn't want to get married in general, or he doesn't want to get married to a female. So I think once that happens, and hopefully it happens soon, because I want to get out of quarantine and start dating.
Yeah.
That, there might be some conversations.
Sure. That even brings up a whole different point. How have you been able to, and you're still in the city, right?
No, so I'm here in Westchester County, a different
Okay.
town than the town that I live in now.
Got you. So how has it been in lockdown and quarantine with even, I don't know where my question's going, like dating wise? It would be such a I'm just thinking like it would be such an odd time right now because all you have is time. So you're wanting to spend time with people, but we can't. And people are, they're like, which I don't like either, but it's happening because of what's happening around the world. What has that been like?
Yeah, I have friends of mine who are like, you need to get on with it. And I'm like, I'm considered quote unquote immunocompromised, although I
Mm,
did get the vaccine 2.5 weeks ago. So I'm waiting for my second shot.
fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. And so, uh, and I'm not like, I flirted with the apps a long time ago, and they just don't speak to me. I don't
Sure.
feel like I can get a good representation of what the person is and what they want,
Yeah.
besides the obvious, which is, sex, which is fine if that's how you roll.
Yeah.
But it's really tough because I'm a traveler. I'm a curious soul at heart. I love listening and learning from people. I love integrating. I love, doing all those things. It's really tough. It's really tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking too because I travel all the time, and there's just been so many different aspects of this year that beyond just the norms of just everyday life has changed, mostly to a Groundhog Day type situation. But yeah, I didn't even think about like dating in this time, how, and especially like getting to know somebody via text or via an app. It's fine, and like you said, if it's for sex, fine. But even that would be a little strange nowadays. Of like, do I kiss somebody? Where have you been? Who have you talked to? Are you been safe? Like, it would be very strange on that regard. But I totally understand. Like, I'm more of a person that gets to know people talking to them. I know
Yeah.
Zoom's a little impersonal, but I definitely enjoy it far more than like trying to get to know someone by text.
Yeah.
Because it just takes so much longer. Where I'm like, I am an okay writer, but like, I like conversation. I like
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
reactions. I like at least feeling your emotion through your smile or your eyes or whatever when I see people. So Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
And I'm like my own editor, right? When I'm texting, I'm like, oh
Oh,
no,
of
no, that word's
course.
wrong. Oh no, 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 that comment needs like come on, get on with it.
Oh man.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's so true of people that just don't know, and like you said with your parents, like, well, you don't have a partner right now, you don't have that, and it's like, oh well, just anti-marriage, anti this, until there's that human being walking in the door.
Yeah.
So what do you think that moment will be like?
I think it's going to be challenging for them in the sense of I think they've accepted that I'm gay.
Okay.
I don't think, and they've not, bashed me for it. They've not told me I'm going to hell, or there's never been any type of information like that. They've expressed to me that they love me finally after my sisters have had their own children. I think they've just kind of grown as people. So I'm totally fine with that. But I think if I was to have a wedding ceremony, I think it would um I think it would be uncomfortable for them a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially like you had said, with just the culture of like not even having kissing on the TV, like just pushing that aside. Yeah, I can imagine. And how have your sisters been with you?
So I have two sisters. One's 3 years older and one's 6 years older. So my sister, who's 6 years older, she's fine with it. We don't talk a lot about
Sure.
me or dating or anything like that. But I did take her on a cruise a few years ago, and I said to her, "I'm going to the single." Oh my God, it's a funny story. I have to tell you this. I'm going to the LGBT singles mixer. So I'm like, she goes, well, she goes, okay, I'll just hang out at the casino or whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll meet back up with you in like an hour. Oh my God. I go to this thing and I'm the only one there. There's no other people.
So you were the single mixer.
Yeah, I met myself. So I came back like 5 minutes later. She's like, "What happened? What happened?" She's like, "Are you going back to the room or something?" I'm like, "No, no one was there." It's just so embarrassing.
Oh man.
Yeah, I would imagine that Carnival Cruises would have had an event knowing the passengers self-identified. I don't know. It was just so odd. But
Yeah, it seems weird to put a whole activity that's a full night for LGBTQ single mixer, and then one
like,
person wanders in.
Okay.
Oh, that is amazing. Oh man. So tell me about Human Resolve.
Oh yeah. So the Human Resolve was something that was so prior to it was like December of 2019. I just knew that I wanted to do something differently, different professionally. I didn't know what that was. I just hit my 5-year remission mark, so I knew it had to be something relating to that. So I randomly found this thing called Junto, which is like a men's retreat. It's in the age of modern masculinity. It's in the age of the Me Too movement that men have to grow and evolve as people. And I just thought the idea was interesting. So I went to this thing. It was in the Catskills, which is from my house. It's about 2 hours away. It's in upstate New York. And I was the only one who was self-identified, as a gay man. But I was fascinated because it was men talking about their feelings, sharing touch, like, platonic touch.
Sure.
We had these exercises, and one of them was so fascinating. We had this exercise where we had to touch each other's hearts, like up close. And there's a science-backed research, I don't know exactly who did it, that said after about 2 minutes or so, the beatings will coincide with one another, that we are geared towards this idea of connection in that sense. And I experienced it. Now, I don't know, I can't replicate it. Maybe it was only a one-time thing, but it did happen. And then I came away with it. It was just a weekend, and there was a prompt at the last day, and it was, what's the conversation you're not having that you should be having? And here I'm thinking, conversation with my dad or my sister. And it was, so I had a falling out with a business venture with 3 other people, and it ended really badly, and there was never closure. And they moved, and they changed all their contact information, but I think they still live at the same place. So I wrote a letter, and that freed me up. And then from there, everything snowballed. And I said, I want to focus on me being a cancer survivor and finding ways to help cancer survivors. And then I took a bunch of courses and I realized I wanted to be a coach. And so what did I do? I enrolled in two coaching programs at the same time. One's a board certified program where I took a 4.5 hour board certification exam. And then another one that was an 8-month program, which was all about like using the body and how that works with coaching. So, and then I basically ran the race there. I launched the LLC. I got brand, copy, color, concept. I told my story through that. I have an IT background, so I designed the website myself. And I launched my podcast and I passed the boards.
Nice.
And so I'm double certified. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I love that your story is so powerful. And I love that you were looking at all the overarching and then you were like, you know what? I'm going to get certified because I want to help people. I think that says a lot about who you are as a person and where your heart is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. And for me, education, I'm a lover of learning. I've been like that since I was young. I'm like, I just won't be confident in coaching people if I know I've been through my own experience.
Sure.
That's fine, but I want to get the professionalism, that's needed.
Yeah. Oh man. And yeah, it's just, funny enough, I didn't even know about life coaching until about 2.5 years ago. And then my partner, I met her on a tour that we were on and she was going through a life coaching certification. And I was just like, what the hell is that? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
And then I was still learning with my story, my sobriety journey. And funny enough, I was like, you should put this on there for your hours to get certified, because the first night I ever talked to her, she told me about that. And then I just like word vomited my whole story. And she was like, oh, wow. And I was like, I just felt really comfortable to tell you everything about my story.
I mean,
so I know. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that speaks to your nature about the fact that you're sort of, ready to be vulnerable or sort of be open to the process.
Yeah. So it also showed me how powerful someone who puts themselves in that regard for humans is so powerful. And I'm not certified or anything, but that's why moving forward, when I started to share my story, I was able to, I got some really good feedback from a friend of mine who was like, dude, when you told your story and when I saw you for the first time sober, I took my first tour sober, the next one I went out on, and now I'm 1 year sober. And actually this Monday, he'll be 2 years sober, which is super awesome. And so that's where this whole idea came from, was just like telling my story and then trying to make it comfortable for people to be vulnerable and talk about life. And I think it's so amazing to also add that professionalism and then be there, especially for the power that, like you said, you have your story, yes, but I want to know and learn and grow with this and then just be there for people. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, there's also a personal responsibility. I mean, they are opening themselves up, their world, their life to me. I want to make sure I adequately know how to handle that, like
Sure.
how to create that container for them and, how to be empathetic with that process. So.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to your get busy living, because I know when my story was literally to the point where the doctors said, we don't know if you'll make it through the night, because my liver was that bad. So I was sitting there that night and it was one of those just like, oh, what the hell did I do to myself? Like I was 33 years old at the time. And
Wow.
So that's pretty damning news. And especially hearing a cancer diagnosis had to be the same. So I was like, I owe it to myself to live, to be the most vulnerable and the most open, the most honest person I can be, because I almost lost that. And the years prior to that, I was so drunk that I was just mayhem in life. And I wanted to contribute to the beauty of life and be able to have these kind of conversations and then share my story through these things to help people feel more open. So
Yeah.
I love what you're up to. I think
Oh,
it's
thank you.
I think it's so wonderful.
No, it makes me think of one concept in coaching that we learn. It's like this idea of like social learning, that people learn from each other. And
Hmm.
just you being in that environment, it wasn't maybe even a conscious choice. It was just people were doing. So you want to kind of fit in. And so it's like you have to separate yourself from action and then kind of the doing, which is not easy at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so cool. All right, I have two more questions for you that I'd
Sure.
love to ask everybody. And the first one is, what would you want the world to know about you?
I would want the world to know that I am someone who's compassionate and someone who's courageous in my fight to live. I am deeply committed to growing and wanting others to find that spark within themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so powerful to be able to find that. And I mean, yeah, to just go through what you've been through and then find that strength and say, I do want to live. Because a lot of people could give up in those moments and
Yeah.
just not leave it up to the doctors and say, you fix me. But there's also that aspect of you that has to come into it of like, I have to be active. I have to be my best part to help move myself forward, even though I'm not helping with the medical part of it. I just have to be that strong to propel my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so this past weekend, I saw the movie Soul by Disney, the animated movie. And I don't want to, give any spoilers out, but it's just really all about sort of that idea to live.
Oh, cool. I'll have to tell you this one. There's one of my favorite lyrics of a song, and it I heard it when the song came out in 2006, but it really struck with me when I was starting to get sober and start living again. And one of the lyrics in it is, snails see the benefit, the beauty in every inch.
Ooh,
And I was like,
beautiful.
yes, because I was not paying attention to life. I was just on this crazy, crazy ride. And then now I was like, I literally have to appreciate every day. Every day that I wake up, I have to find the beauty in it. So that was my kind of like get busy living. That was my, I'm gonna be like a snail and I'm gonna see the beauty in every inch. I'm just like every little part of life that I almost lost, because you don't really think about it that heavily until you're presented with that kind of that kind of news. And so that was my mantra as I moved along. I don't know if you can see it, but I got a
Oh,
little snail.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I see
That was
it.
on
Oh,
my
it's
1 year
great.
sobriety date.
Oh, that's
So it's
fantastic.
it's it's living with me.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, for me, it's really interesting because a lot of friends are like, you're a wellness coach and you coach people and you do all these things. And I'm like, yeah, but COVID is big. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, freedom. I lost my freedom. And that's like I took
yeah,
that for granted, like so many other people, I imagine. I literally took that for granted. And it
right.
really did. It took away my freedom.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too with COVID, what I'm hoping people take back into life when we get back to the crazy pace that life normally is, because once we get to work again and we do this and like, I mean, you know how life goes. I mean, it's
Mhm.
beginning of 8 days into April already, which is bonkers to think that we're this far along in 2021 already.
I know.
So
I know.
I just hope that people realize that we did take for granted the little beautiful parts, the getting together with your friends, going out in nature, going out and just going for a walk or whatever it was that you just kind of were like, oh, I have to do this after work. Now it's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to. And also the importance of time, because we have been, we did lose a lot, but we did gain so much
Mm,
time where it
true.
was like so many times I know in my life I'd be like, I just didn't have the time. In this last year, it's been like, can't say that. I got all the time, all the time. I'm sitting
Totally.
here with nothing but time. So I'm hoping people take that with them, say 3 months from now when the pace is back to just bonkers crazy, that it's like, just slow down and give yourself that time, because it is beautiful. Like when you're presented with the news that you might not have a tomorrow, you think about these things of life and what you did and didn't do, obviously. And I know when I had that moment, I wasn't thinking, oh shit, I didn't get this job or that job. I wasn't thinking about the money that was or wasn't in my bank account. I was thinking of the places that I would never see, the people I would never see again. And that's what was important to me. So that's when I had that, I was just thinking, I need to live. I need to do these little details in life and live it my way and do that. So I'm hoping people have learned that through this, the silver linings of something nobody has ever dealt with in our lifetime.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. That's my hope as we move back to whatever the next phase of normal looks like.
Yeah. Well, I just hope people are smarter or wiser to it.
That too. I hope that. I haven't seen good signs of it, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah. I'm hopeful as well.
Yeah. All right. And the last question, well, not even, I guess, question. If you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
I would say to them what I talk about mostly. So I have a weekly newsletter and I talk about the three brains, and there's science-backed research on the head, the heart, and the guts. And I would say, try to tune into that every day. If something is conflicting you or something is bothering you, or when you're in some type of quandary.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, because we all have it. In order to live, we all have to have all three of those.
Yeah.
So
they're very vital.
And there's an intelligence there that most people don't. I mean, I know for myself, I mostly live in the head. So when I was learning these concepts, I'm like, I was testing it out on myself. Like I literally was like Margaret Mead, like literally going on like excavation and trying to figure it out. And there really is a power in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just good to, even if you don't know how to do that, to actively try. Because then you're trying to figure it out and you're thinking differently than just like, oh, I'll focus on this part of my life and where I think. And
and some people are like, but I can't. So I just say to them, can you picture yourself in an elevator? Like, yeah, I'm like, think of the head as the top of where you are in the office building, and you're going down the elevator. Now you're at the heart, and then you're going down to the bottom, and now you're at the gut. And they're like, oh, that really works. I'm like, well, you know, it's just a tool.
Yeah.
It's just a tool. You need to do the work. It's just a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. All right. So where can people find you?
They can find me.
They want to connect.
Yeah, they can find me at my website, thehumanresolve.com. On there, like I mentioned, I have my podcast. I have my weekly, newsletter, Living Smarter, Feeding You Three Brains, as I call it. And what I do on there is every week I talk about, I have a prompt that they could get on their smartphone as well. So it's all on my website. And I literally answer the prompt myself. And I really am very transparent about my life and what I'm going through, and people find it very refreshing. So I'm all about trying to be an example of what I'm preaching.
Sure. Which is a big thing that I would love to see more across the board.
Absolutely. Yeah. Perfect.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I'll put that in the show notes when it does come out, and push people your way.
Excellent.
And man, I thank you for your time. This was really wonderful chat.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, man. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
All right. You too. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Peace signs up.